Hey, hi all. I am Shetul Mistry. Today we're gonna be discussing on test case design section and how we can generate the test cases out of the different techniques which are available in the TCD section. So without wasting much time, let's just jump to our demo where we will demonstrate how we can generate the different test cases through the different techniques which are available in the test case design section. So here I have created one basic template which is dealing with the registration process, any registration process. And the methodology which has been followed here is the standard pattern for specifying the test cases. So we in Tricentis, we follow this standard or attribute structure for a test sheet. So talking about this standard structure, it is basically the administration part, precondition part, process part, and the verification part. So this administration part takes care about the how what is the project or what is the project ID, what are the test cases, contact business information or who are the test designers for it. So all this administration part has been taken care by this particular attribute. And here you can see the color of this administration is slightly different from the precondition and the process. So this can be achieved with the help of in the TCD section. You can jump to the properties and here you can see for administration, the attribute type is logical and the business relevance is no. And if we talk about the precondition, the attribute type is physical and the business relevance is yes with a color dark red. Same applies for the attribute process. The attribute type is logical and the business relevance is yes. And if we talk about the last attribute, which is the verification, which is of green color, the attribute type is logical and the business relevant is result. So this can be achieved by toggling on the attributes which are there with the help of the shortcuts which are available. uh, F7, by pressing F7 you can toggle. So this was the importance of the different color codes for the each and every attribute. Now talking about the precondition. So preconditions are required, like what are the precondition or the prerequisite to run any of the business test case, which can be a functional prerequisite or a technical prerequisite. All this that things can be taken care under this attribute. And talking about the process, so this is basically deals with the actual process or the business process which we gonna be conducting or which we need in our particular test case. So these are easy to read and generalized description of the process steps are being segregated here in the form of the attributes which are being assigned to this particular attribute process. And talking about the verification, which is the green colored attribute, is nothing but the any specific verification checkpoints are there you want to verify. So it deals with the specific test case flows which are there in your particular test case which you are defining through the TCD part. So here in the basic template, I have created one registration process. A test sheet is created for a registration process, which is basically dealing with the process where I have created four attributes. One is name, email ID, password, and password repeated. So what is this things is done, like in this email attribute, I have assigned the two instances, named it as valid format and invalid format. As you can see, like or when we are dealing with any of the registration process on any of the application, there might be two possibility. One is the email address is in a valid format and the email address is in an invalid format. So both the instances are defined here. In password, we have defined two instances. One is the valid password length and second is the invalid password length. There might can occur like in a particular registration process, you are required to enter certain specific amount of the length or so that considered as a valid password length. And there might be possibility that the certain expected password length is not meeting the expectation. In that case, it might can throw an error or something, it will validate as an invalid password length. So these are these two instances associated with the attribute password. Now there can be a chances like we need to enter the password two times, like one is the password and then repeat password. So for that, it might can occur like the we have entered the same password correctly, and it might can occur like the password, the repeated password which we are entering can be an incorrect one. So both these attributes have been taken care. And talking about the verification, yes, once all the attributes or all the business flow information are been inserted via test case flow, then it might can show a message of a success or an error based on the test cases we would be generating out of this particular basic structure. So this was all about the structuring part, the test methodology which has been followed as a part of best practices in Tricentis. So now talking about the different techniques which are used for generating the test cases. So here, as we know that we are talking about the agile and the DevOps project, it is really time consuming to do manual and create each test case out of the created instances at the sheet level, test sheet level. So you might can ask like, is there a way to generate the number of the test cases out of the structured test sheet and later can be reviewed on which to keep and which to be discarded? Yes, definitely there are. Tricentis Tosca, the TCD part or the test case design part provides a way to create the different test cases out of the different combinations of the instances and the attributes. And there comes the concept of the combinatorials of the test case design. So in order to generate these test cases, there are different methods which are been available in the Tosca. So talking about this combination combinatorial methods, the prerequisite in order to use this combinatorial method is first you need to have or you need to create the test sheet which is already been created, identify the structure. We have already identified and prepared a proper structured layer in the form of the administration, precondition, process, and verification. So once this structured is ready, we are we are ready to go by for creating the test cases with the different techniques which are available. So in order to generate the test cases, what we can do, we can right click on the test sheet on the registration sheet, and here you can see generate test cases, all combinations. So we'll click on this all combinations. And as you can see, total 8 test cases are generated out of this all combinations. So here it is combining all the attributes and its instances to generate the test cases with all combinations. And it is so what is the logic or the what is the logic behind generating the eight test cases? It is nothing but it is basically multiplying all the instances present in the attributes you have defined. So as you can see here, it is only taking the attribute values which are of the business relevance, which we have defined in the process. So here you can see in the email we have defined two, in password we have defined two instance, and in password repeated we have defined two. So 2 into 2 into 2, so it makes to a total of 8. So 8 test cases are generated out of this. So talking about the all combination, ideally we should not do this or follow this method for generating the test cases as it falls under the exhaustive testing. For now, the structure is very small, like we have just four attributes in our process, but let's say there are 100 or 200 or n number of attributes which are required for your business process. So for in that case, if we are going with the all combination method, it can turn out into a exhaustive testing, which we don't suggest usually going with all combinations method. So this was all about the all combination method here. So what we will do, we'll copy this sheet, we'll paste it here just for the reference, and we can delete it here. Okay. So now talking about the second method. So we'll again right click on the test sheet of registration. We'll go to generate instance, and here you can see the method called orthogonal. So we'll click on this. Here once we expand this, so here you can see the in orthogonal, in which the small subset of the test cases are generated. So the underlying logic behind this method of generating the test cases is that the each instance in the test sheet, each instance of the each attribute is at least used once. That's why you have the minimum number of the test cases here generated. There are only two test cases generated. So it would, so this particular method orthogonal will make sure that all the instance of the attributes are used at least once and won't combine everything. So here you can see like valid format, valid password length, correctly repeated, invalid format, invalid password length, and incorrectly repeated. So all these are used at least once in order to satisfy the logic behind the orthogonal. So again, we'll copy this sheet just for our further reference. We'll paste it in orthogonal. We'll delete this instance. Perfect. Okay. So now going ahead with the third method, we'll right click on the registration and we'll click on the method which is called pairwise. So here you can see the four test cases are generated in the pairwise. So what is the underlying logic behind this particular method? So basically there is no underlying logic behind the pairwise. It is generating the test cases in the pairs of the instances. As you can see, the test cases are generated in the pair of the instance: valid format, invalid format, invalid format, valid password length, invalid password length, valid password length, invalid. So it is generating in the pair of the instances, which is meaning by each and every of the pair of instances must occur. Like each and every pair of the instances must occur in the test cases which are. So if the attribute differ from the pair, and so that this would be like a mix algorithm of the generation, so it actually doesn't uh, resort on some specific logic. Like if the attribute differ, then definitely there the pair would also differ, which are dealing with those attributes. So there is no any fixed logic behind the generation of the pairwise, but yes, the main logic or the main algorithm which is there, which is associated with the method pairwise, is that the test cases are generated in the pairs of the, or it is being utilized in the form of the pairs of the instances, as it has been pretty much evident here: valid format, and invalid format. So this was all about the method pairwise. Now remove this. Okay. Now going ahead, where we are dealing with our last and the foremost very important method, which is called the linear expansion. So we'll click on it. And here you can see the linear expansion cannot be performed. Why? Because it is throwing one error like a straight through instance cannot be generated because of the following business relevant structure contains no straight through instance. Okay. So now here comes the main prerequisite in order to work with the method linear expansion for generating the test cases. So first we'll expand here. So we'll focus on the this attributes which are dealing with the business relevance, right? So as you can see here in the process, we'll close these properties. So here, in order to use the linear expansion, at least one instance of the attribute should have a straight through in it, right? So this is basically like this is the method which Tricentis Tosca basically recommends to their customers and partners for generating the test cases. So as I already discussed that the prerequisite for using the linear expansion is that the at least one instance at each attribute level should have one straight through. Now what is this straight through? Its straight through is nothing but it is the value which is the most frequently used, or we can say the happy path values. So this can be done by using the toggle character button which is there on the top. So you can see here. So once you click here, you can see this button toggle character. So you can click here, or else you can press the F7 multiple times in order to change its color and the properties. So once I click here, this becomes the invalid. Once I click here, it becomes the straight through. So this color with the red and with the I in white indicates the instance at the straight through. So we'll make each attribute of this instance as straight through. Okay. So yes, this is at the process level it is done. So this name we have not defined here. We'll define once the test cases are generated and we'll work it out there. Now let's try to create the linear expansion. Yes, now you can see that the linear expansion have generated the 4 test cases. So as you can see, the first test case is dealing with the straight through. And this is basically the most basic sequence of your workflow steps. So this is the happy path. And then every test cases, as you can see, like from the previous test case is just differing from one value. All all the values are same except the one value. As you can see here in the straight through, first test case is having all the straight through. In the second test cases, just one value is differing from the rest from the first test case value. Similarly, the third test case, the just one value is differing from the rest of two. And in the last test case, the just one value is differing from the rest of two. So the purpose behind this kind of logic is that, let's say, for example, your first test case is passing and your second test case is failing, then you can easily identify that the test case is failing because of the this instance value, which has been differing from the first test case values. So that you can like provided and provided with the conditions that you are testing this particular test cases in a stable environment conditions, and there are no other hindrance associated with it. So what we can achieve from this linear expansion is that, so that the error guessing and the defect tracking is much more easier compared to the rest of the techniques for generating the test cases, and also the maintenance of the test case is easier here compared to the rest of the methods. And we definitely recommend to use this, but we don't say that this method is must, because it all depends on the demography of any of the project. Like they might can go with the orthogonal, a combination of orthogonal and a pairwise, or a combination of any of the like linear expansion or something other. So yes, we definitely recommend, but it's not a must. It will definitely depend on the demography of the of any of the projects which we are dealing with. So yes, this was all about the linear expansion, and here you can the names, you can just provide the values. Let's say Shetul, so it will populate here. And talking about administration, let's say our test type is this one is a happy path, so it is a smoke test. The rest we are making it as regression, or probably which has been told by from our subject matter expert, or from our analysis part. And definitely here it would be a success, it would be a success message if it is passing. Here it is, it's a invalid. So yes, to throw me an error. Here also error, error. Here let's say the test designer is maybe just giving a name to, in order to understand how we can structure the administration part. SME is let's say, so in this way you can assign the names who are responsible SME, or who is the test case designer associated with your particular registration process, so that in future if any of the modification or any of the revision comes, then how we can identify the person who is been owner of this particular cluster, who is the SME dealing with this registration process. So this is all about the administration part, which has been taken care in the test methodology, or the basic structured method which we follow in our TCD part at the Tricentis. So this was all about the different test like different techniques which are used for test case generation, the test methodology or the test case structured which has been followed as a part of best practices at the TCD level. Yes, that's it. Thank you.